What if I told you that a single decision made in the heart of West Africa could send shockwaves through the corridors of power in Europe? What if one man, a young, fearless revolutionary, just slammed the door on decades of foreign interference with a single stroke of his pen? This is not fiction. This is not a rumor. To shut down a European embassy operating on Burkinabe soil. This is the bold, historical decision by Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, and the world wasn't ready for it. Today, we take you inside one of the most powerful geopolitical moves made by any African leader in the 21st century. Welcome to African Today TV, the channel where Africa speaks its truth. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has chosen to flip the table altogether. While many presidents on the continent still bow at the table of foreign donors, why did he close the embassy? What secrets was that embassy hiding? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of African independence, sovereignty, and unity? This isn't just about Burkina Faso. This is about every African nation tired of being exploited, undermined, and dictated to. Stay tuned, because we're diving deep into a story of courage, confrontation, and continental awakening. This is African Today TV. Let's begin. Through military presence, diplomatic cooperation, and financial aid agreements that often served European interests more than African needs, these nations kept control without chains. Leaders who tried to break away, like the legendary Thomas Sankara, were either assassinated or overthrown. The legacy of dependency was deeply entrenched. Many became centers for intelligence gathering, political influence, and even clandestine manipulation. His message? Africa for Africans, Burkina Faso for Burkinabe. To truly understand the magnitude of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's decision, we must first understand the history. For decades, European nations, especially former colonial powers like France, have maintained a subtle but firm grip on West Africa. Embassies were not just diplomatic buildings. In Burkina Faso, this was no different. After independence from France in 1960, the nation struggled to gain true sovereignty. That is, until Captain Ibrahim Traoré rose to power. Traoré, a military officer in his mid-30s, came to power in 2022 on a wave of anger, purpose, and revolution. Since then, he has consistently exposed and dismantled neo-colonial networks, removed French troops, rejected IMF conditions, and built stronger ties with African allies and new global partners like Russia and China. And now, he has gone a step further by targeting the very buildings through which foreign influence operates, the embassies themselves. The specific European embassy that Captain Traoré shut down has not been officially named in mainstream Western media, but insiders in Ouagadougou, intelligence sources, and government aides have confirmed it involved espionage. According to multiple reports obtained by African Today TV, the embassy had allegedly been used as a base for intelligence operations, not just against Burkina Faso, but against its allied governments in the Sahel region. Encrypted communication channels traced back to the embassy showed attempts to fund opposition movements and even sabotage local infrastructure projects tied to Traoré's sovereign agenda. More disturbingly, sources within Burkina Faso's counterintelligence agency revealed that European diplomats had met with individuals connected to known extremist cells in the region, raising red flags across the highest levels of government. Traoré's team acted swiftly. The evidence was reportedly overwhelming. Documents, recordings, satellite data, and intercepted phone calls were all reviewed by a specialized task force created under the Ministry of State Security. Youths sang revolutionary songs. Murals of Traoré went up overnight in city centers and rural towns. Then came the final straw. In a classified report presented to the president, it was shown that the embassy had tried to make contact with former Burkinabe officials currently exiled in Europe, many of whom are considered fugitives under national law. At that moment, the decision was made. Both countries released joint statements calling the move a legitimate assertion of sovereignty and encouraged other nations to consider reevaluating their own foreign missions. No press conference, no backdoor diplomacy, just a decree of immediate expulsion, the closure of the embassy, and the sealing of its doors by Burkinabe forces. Sanctions were discussed behind closed doors, and some European media attempted to frame Traoré as a military dictator shutting out the world. It was a message, not just to that country, but to every foreign power still playing shadow games in Africa. Your time is up. The decision sparked fire across social media, with hashtags like hashtag Traoré the Lion and hashtag Africa is Awake trending across Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Across Africa, the people knew better. In Burkina Faso, thousands of citizens poured into the streets in support. Women waved national flags. We're done with foreign lies. Africa is not for sale. The country is deepening trade and security ties with Mali, Niger, Guinea, and even countries outside Africa that have no colonial legacy on the continent. For many Africans, this moment represented something bigger than one embassy. It was symbolic of the growing Pan-African resistance, a push to reclaim political and economic power from centuries-old puppet strings. It's a powerhouse in the making. Other African leaders have taken note. In Mali and Niger, Burkina Faso's closest allies in the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, support was swift. But in Europe, the response was different. Several EU officials labeled the move as aggressive, unwarranted, and harmful to diplomatic relations. But this propaganda had little effect. Africa is open for cooperation, not exploitation. A symbol of African rebirth, of pride, of power without permission. African Today TV reached out to a number of Burkinabe citizens to get their take. One woman said, "We finally have a leader who does not fear the West. He fights for our dignity." Another young activist added, "Let them close their embassies." The shutting down of this European embassy is not just an act of rejection, it is an act of rebirth. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is drawing a line in the red Sahel sand. Africa will no longer tolerate being treated as a chessboard for foreign interests. Instead, Burkina Faso is building new alliances based on mutual respect and non-interference. The message is clear. Africa is no longer a playground. In fact, just weeks after the embassy closure, Traoré announced plans to build a new regional intelligence hub in Ouagadougou, led by AES forces, to monitor foreign interference and protect Pan-African interests. At the same time, Burkina Faso is investing in education, agriculture, water infrastructure, and military capacity, all without the usual conditionalities imposed by Western donors. This move to reject European oversight also strengthens the call for a unified African foreign policy, one that places sovereignty, resource control, and dignity at the center. And let's be clear, this isn't about isolation. This isn't about rejecting diplomacy. This is about setting boundaries. So what's next? For Traoré, this move adds yet another chapter to a growing legacy. He has become not just a leader, but a symbol. For Burkina Faso, the closure of the embassy marks a turning point, an irreversible shift toward total sovereignty. And for Africa as a whole, it sets a precedent. If one small, landlocked nation can stand up and say no more, then what's stopping the rest? As the West scrambles to understand what went wrong, Africa is finally asking the right question. What took us so long to wake up? Here at African Today TV, we will continue to bring you the real stories, the bold decisions, the unsilenced truths, and the revolution happening right now on the mother continent. If you're tired of Western narratives and hungry for African perspective, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Because the winds of change are blowing across Africa, and Traoré just lit the fuse.